Some people do not reveal who they are when life is easy. They reveal it when something they want is delayed, denied, or placed just out of reach. That is not bad luck. That is exposure. So stay with me until the end, because the deeper signs are not the obvious ones, and the last insight is often the one that changes how you see everyone around you. And if this way of looking at life speaks to you, subscribe and keep walking with me here. Welcome back to Guiguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm Sophia, the writer behind this video. Today, I want to talk with you about 3 moments when people reveal their true nature. Not through speeches, not through charm, not through the image they work so hard to control. I mean the real nature underneath the performance. The part that comes out when pressure rises, when desire is stirred, when timing turns against them, and when life stops cooperating with the version of themselves they like to present. Most people think they understand character because they listen to words. I do not. I watch patterns. I watch what a person does when they are overlooked, when they are contradicted, and when they have the power to take more than they deserve. That is where the mask slips. The strange thing about human nature is that it does not usually announce itself. It leaks, quietly, through reaction, through impatience, through the small choices people make when they think no one will remember. And yet, those small choices shape everything. They shape marriage, friendship, family, reputation, opportunity. They shape who rises, who falls, who is trusted, who is tolerated, and who is eventually left alone wondering why nothing stable ever stays in their life. This is where most people get it wrong. They judge by warmth, not by steadiness, by confidence, not by restraint, by intensity, not by character. But intensity proves nothing. A person can speak with passion and still be false. A person can look loyal and still disappear when the cost becomes real. A person can act humble and still be ruled by ego. So the real question is not who seems good when conditions are smooth. The real question is who they become in the moments that strip comfort away. The first moment is this, when they do not get what they want. There's an old strategic principle I have come to trust. Desire does not merely pull people forward. It exposes what governs them. Some people can carry desire without becoming ugly. Others cannot. The moment their wish is blocked, you finally meet the force that has been driving them all along. Think about it. When someone is praised, promoted, chosen, included, or admired, almost anyone can seem gracious. It is easy to be pleasant when life is feeding the image you have of yourself. But when the answer is no, when the opportunity goes to someone else, when the relationship does not move in their favor, when the plan is delayed, something deeper begins to surface. Maybe they smile, but their warmth changes. Maybe they become cold in ways they hope you will not notice. Maybe they turn critical, sarcastic, dismissive. Maybe they begin to speak as if what they wanted was never worth much anyway. Or maybe they become suddenly generous toward people above them and quietly hostile toward people beside them. That is not disappointment alone. That is revealed nature. It is not because rejection is powerful. It is because denial removes the illusion of control, and many people cannot tolerate that. They do not just want a result. They want the world to confirm their importance. When it does not, their self-control collapses. You see this in work all the time. Someone is passed over for a promotion. At first, they say all the right things. They say they understand. They say they support the team. They say timing is timing. But then you watch what follows. Do they still work with discipline? Do they still treat others fairly? Do they still respect the process? Or do they begin poisoning the atmosphere, withholding effort, speaking with hidden bitterness, waiting for a chance to undermine what they could not own? That is the moment to pay attention. The real danger is not the person who feels hurt. Hurt is human. The real danger is the person whose hurt immediately becomes entitlement, resentment, or sabotage. Because that tells you something essential. They do not merely pursue goals. They worship their own appetite, and appetite without discipline becomes destruction. I remember a woman I once worked with in a small office years ago. We were both up for a leadership role. She was sharp, polished, socially skilled. Most people liked her immediately. And to be honest, I understood why. She knew how to make a room feel warm when things were going her way. But when the role went to someone else, I watched her change with startling speed. Not openly. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she became selective with information. She began leaving people out of key conversations. She praised decisions in public and mocked them in private. She started treating support staff with a thin edge in her voice, as if her disappointment had given her permission to drop the performance around those she thought did not matter. That told me more than anything she had said in the previous year. Do you see the turning point here? Failure did not ruin her character. It revealed the part of her character that success had been hiding. Wise people understand this. They do not judge others by ambition alone, because ambition can be noble or corrosive. They watch what ambition becomes when it is frustrated. Does the person grow more disciplined, more reflective, more patient, or do they become petty, manipulative, and cruel in subtle ways? Look at reality for what it is. The person who cannot bear a closed door will eventually become dangerous around any door they cannot open. Maybe not violently, maybe not dramatically, but relationally, emotionally, strategically. They will punish what does not submit to them. And if you tie your life to that kind of person, you will pay for it later. You will pay in trust, in peace, in clarity, in time you cannot get back. That is why the first moment matters so much. When someone does not get what they want, you get a rare glimpse of whether desire serves their character or whether their character serves desire. Those are very different lives. The second moment is when they hold a little power over someone who cannot repay them. This is where appearances become especially dangerous because many people know how to perform kindness upward. They know how to be charming with those they need, respectful with those who can benefit them, attentive with those whose approval has currency. But that is not character. That is calculation. Character reveals itself downward. A deep law of life is this. The way a person handles unequal ground tells you whether they understand dignity or only status. When someone has leverage, advantage, rank, or social protection, and the other person has less, the heart becomes easier to read. Why? Because restraint is no longer required by fear. It is required by values. And many people have fewer values than they claim. This is why I pay attention to how someone treats servers, assistants, janitors, older relatives, anxious children, exhausted spouses, and anyone whose position makes it inconvenient to fight back. That is not a small detail. That is a map. A fake person often thinks goodness is a performance for the audience that matters. So they become polished where they are seen and careless where they are safe. They become courteous in public and cutting in private. They speak about empathy, fairness, and respect, but only where those words increase their image. The real question is not whether they know the language of decency. The real question is whether they practice decency when there is no strategic reward. At home, this becomes painfully clear. Someone may speak softly in public, but inside the family they dominate every conversation, dismiss vulnerability, weaponize silence, or use financial pressure, emotional pressure, or social shame to keep others small. Then they go outside and act wounded when they are not admired enough. That is not complexity. That is duplicity. And people live for years under the weight of that confusion because they keep mistaking public smoothness for private sincerity. I have seen this in families more times than I can count. A person becomes the center of every room because they know how to appear generous, funny, and helpful. But ask the people closest to them how safety feels around that person, and you may hear a different truth. You may hear about moods that control the household, about affection given and withdrawn like a bargaining tool, about kindness that disappears the moment obedience does. That is power without maturity, and power without maturity always leaves damage behind.